couple months ago, we got the news that Kensuke Tanabe is retiring from Nintendo, and I made a video about what this could mean for the future of the Paper Mario series. And while I have nothing against Tanabe as a person, and I feel like he was far from the only influence over the issues with this series prior to the Thousand Year Door remake, I feel like someone else having his role would be best at this point. But there was one part of the video that I wanted to touch on more because I got a lot of comments about it, and that's Tanabe's replacement, Risa Tabata. So who is Risa Tabata anyway? Well, she worked at Nintendo for almost 25 years, starting as a production coordinator for Metroid Prime, and later being an assistant producer alongside Kensuke Tanabe for many games, including Metroid Prime, Retro's Donkey Kong Country, Punch-Out Wii, and various games developed by Skip and Vanpole. Eventually, she would become an assistant producer for the Paper Mario series, starting with Color Splash, and her first main producer role, presumably after Tanabe stepped down from the series, was the Thousand Year Door remake. And despite my previous video being generally hopeful about the future of the series with Tabata at the helm, there were quite a few comments who were skeptical of her, and for understandable reasons. She did work alongside Tanabe throughout most of her career, and didn't exactly make a good first impression to Paper Mario fans with the Color Splash interview she did with GameXplain. But those are really the only two areas of concern. I feel like there's already a lot of proof that she handles game development somewhat differently than Tanabe, despite their connection. First, let's look at the ice cream elephant in the room, her Color Splash interview with GameXplain. While a lot of the things that she says in this interview, such as the heavy emphasis on paper themes and the fact that the series was moving away from being an RPG, were concerning, I feel like it's important to keep in mind that she was really just the messenger here. This also applies to Tanabe in several cases too, but Tabata in this interview to a greater extent, because Color Splash was the first Paper Mario game she was involved with. She was really just repeating a lot of the discussions and sentiments that EPD6 had around this time. I don't really think this reflects her as a producer. It's also worth mentioning that this article is nearly 10 years old, and the philosophies held about the Paper Mario series have likely changed since then. One of the things said during the interview was that RPG elements weren't included because the Mario & Luigi series covered the RPG genre for the Mario franchise. I think this is an old sentiment that neither Nintendo nor Risa Tabata hold anymore. It's clear that they are okay with having multiple traditional Mario RPG series nowadays, since they released 3 of them within a year, and they all sold at least 2 million copies. Another thing that she mentioned is about the character restrictions. She acknowledged that Toad NPCs were separate individuals with unique personalities, despite them having the same designs, but didn't say anything about them not being allowed to have unique or modified designs. This may be because she didn't have much involvement with the IP team's decisions, or was dancing around the question, but the way she answered it makes me feel that she wouldn't have been against modified designs or unique characters, and her involvement with the Thousand Year Door remake kind of confirms this. Another thing is that even though she worked under Tanabe for many years, that doesn't necessarily mean she holds the exact same sentiments as him. Just because someone is your friend or coworker doesn't mean you'll always share the exact same ideas. Like, if I were to develop a game and then had Dimitri take over for the sequel, you all know full well that sequel is gonna be very different. When looking at the Metroid Prime series, it seems like Tabata and Tanabe had differing ideas in certain areas. According to a Metroid Prime 3 interview, she was actually skeptical of voice acting in the Prime series because she thought it may contradict the feeling of loneliness. It seemed like the only reason she went along with it was because it added accessibility of not having to read dialogue. Metroid fans, this may be a good sign for you guys. And this also goes to show that Tanabe and Tabata don't have the exact same philosophies when it comes to things being added to games. And the Thousand Year Door remake is proof that she likely has a different philosophy towards handling the Paper Mario games as Tanabe. Unlike Tanabe's seemingly rigid guidelines of the previous 3 Paper Mario games, or at the very least, his complacency with those guidelines, it seems like Tabata, along with the rest of EPD's guidance, let Intelligent Systems go all out. including extra super bosses based on the game's original characters like Prince Mush, and retaining the same character designs, which I feel wouldn't have been possible several years before. It also shows that she is capable of listening to fan feedback. Interestingly, during that same Color Splash interview, she actually mentioned that they would consider the possibility of a remaster of the classic Paper Mario game if there were enough fans who wanted it. I don't think Tanabe would have been entirely against the idea of a Thousand Year Door remake, but I feel like it's definitely telling that the most faithful and respectful remake of a Mario game was done by the same developers as the most controversial games in the franchise once a new producer stepped up. And another thing is that there are multiple producers for the Thousand Year Door remake, 2 from Intelligent Systems and 2 from Nintendo, including Tabata. So it seems like she isn't even gonna be the only one replacing Tanabe, at least for the Paper Mario series. The remake having producers from within Intelligent Systems makes a lot of sense. It might explain why they were able to have as much freedom as they did. It might also be a decision from Nintendo in response to feedback from various Paper Mario interviews over the years, to avoid another modern Paper Mario situation. Plus, the Mario & Luigi series already had producers from within the development studios over the years, including Brothership, so this decision makes a lot of sense. But regardless of what the situation is, I feel like if the Thousand Year Door remake is any indication, Paper Mario still has a bright future with Risa Tabata as a producer. She started working on the series after the absolute worst of the direction changes and the IP team restrictions with Sticker Star, and started when the series was at least attempting to get back on track. And with how passionate the modern Paper Mario devs are, and Nintendo's recent push for a full comeback of the Mario RPGs, I feel like there's nothing to worry about at this point. But anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments, and thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!